On August 5, 1962, one of Hollywood's brightest stars was found dead in her Los Angeles home. And to this day, no one fully agrees on why. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just an actress. She was the face of an entire era. By the time of her death, she had starred in over 20 films, including Some Like It Hot and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and had become one of the most photographed women in the world. She grew up in a difficult and unstable childhood, moving between foster homes before reinventing herself into one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. That night, she was found unresponsive in her bedroom, with an empty bottle of sleeping pills nearby. The official ruling was probably overdose, but almost immediately questions began. Why did it take hours for anyone to call for help? Why were there gaps and inconsistencies in the police report? Why did her phone records from that night mysteriously disappear? Investigators at the time also noted unusual delays in how the scene was handled before authorities arrived. Some believe it was an accidental overdose. Others point to her connections with powerful political figures and suspect something far darker. Decades later, the full truth still hasn't surfaced and likely never will. Books, documentaries, and investigations have continued to revisit her final hours. Yet none has produced a conclusion strong enough to settle the debate. Marilyn Monroe was born on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, California. She died at just 36 years old. Today, her grave lies at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, a quiet, modest resting place for a woman who once outshone everyone around her. To Natalie Wood, on November 29, 1981, one of Hollywood's most loved actresses was found dead in the waters off Catalina Island, and the real reason she died has never been fully agreed upon. Natalie Wood became famous as a child star and went on to lead some of the biggest films of her generation, including West Side Story and Rebel Without a Cause. By 1981, she was married to actor Robert Wagner, and the two were spending a weekend on their yacht with actor Christopher Walken. Friends later described the trip as tense from the very first night. That night, Natalie disappeared from the boat. Her body was found the next morning floating near a small dinghy. The original investigation ruled her death an accidental drowning, but for decades, many people questioned that answer. Witnesses described a loud argument on the boat that night. Bruises were found on her body that did not match a simple fall into water, and a life jacket was later found still on board. In 1981, the official record listed her death as an accident, but that record did not stay the same forever. Years later, after a new investigation, the Los Angeles County coroner changed her death certificate. Her cause of death was rewritten to say drowning and other undetermined factors. It was no longer officially called an accident. Robert Wagner was later named a person of interest in the case, but no charges were ever filed against him or anyone else, and he has consistently denied any wrongdoing. Natalie Wood was born on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco, California. She died at just 43 years old. Today, she rests at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles, not far from many of the other legends she once shared the screen with. 3. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was one of Hollywood's most admired leading men, known for films like Giant and Pillow Talk. For decades, he was seen as the picture of strength and good health, the kind of star studios built entire careers around. So when the world learned the truth about his final years, it changed how people understood an entire disease. In the early 1980s, Hudson began losing weight and looking unwell, but his team told the public it was nothing serious. Reporters who asked questions were given vague answers or simple denials. For months, the real story stayed hidden behind a wall of careful public relations. In 1985, Hudson's representatives finally admitted the truth. He had been diagnosed with AIDS, but his team had let the public believe he was suffering from liver cancer instead. The false explanation held for months before reporters uncovered what was really happening, making Hudson one of the first major celebrities to publicly reveal a disease much of the world still did not understand or want to talk about. His diagnosis, even though revealed by necessity rather than choice, changed the public conversation around AIDS almost overnight. Donations to research increased. Awareness spread faster than it ever had before. and public figures who had stayed silent began speaking out for the first time. Rock Hudson was born on November 17, 1925, in Winnetka, Illinois. He died on October 2, 1985, at the age of 59. His ashes were scattered at sea, leaving no grave for fans to visit. A quiet final chapter for a man whose illness had once been hidden from the entire world. Albert Dekker spent decades as a respected character actor, known for his role in the 1940 film Dr. Cyclops and for a long career on stage and screen. He was reliable, professional, and well-regarded by those who worked with him, often praised for the depth he brought to supporting roles. In May 1968, Dekker was found dead in his Hollywood home under circumstances that immediately raised questions. For years, reports softened what had actually happened, describing his death simply as a heart attack or an unfortunate accident, protecting both his image and his family from the full truth. In reality, the circumstances were far stranger than the public was told. Investigators ruled his death an accident connected to unusual personal activity that had gone wrong. The full details took years to fully circulate publicly, and even now, many people only know the simplified version that was first reported at the time. His family and representatives at the time chose to keep the more difficult truth out of public conversation, allowing a gentler explanation to stand for years before more complete accounts eventually surfaced in later decades. Those who knew him said the contrast between his quiet professional reputation and the strange nature of his death made the story even harder for many fans to process when the fuller picture finally came out. Decades later, biographers and film historians who revisited his case noted that the gap between the public story and the private reality reflected a broader pattern in Hollywood at the time, where studios and families often worked together to protect a star's image even after death. For many fans who only later learned the fuller story, the case became a symbol of how much control the industry once had over what the public was allowed to know. Albert Dekker was born on December 20, 1904, in Brooklyn, New York. He died on May 5, 1968, at the age of 63. 5. Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd was one of the brightest comedic actresses of the early 1930s, known for her sharp timing and her work alongside legends like Laurel and Hardy. She also ran a popular restaurant on the Pacific Coast Highway, making her one of the more independent and business-minded women in Hollywood at the time. In December 1935, Todd was found dead inside her car, parked in a closed garage near her restaurant. The cause was listed as carbon monoxide poisoning. At first, investigators called it a but her body showed bruising and injuries that did not fit cleanly with that explanation, including a broken nose and cracked ribs. After public pressure, a grand jury reviewed the case and the official ruling was changed to accidental death. The new explanation did not resolve the unanswered injuries either, and to this day, many believe foul play was never properly investigated, with some pointing to her connections to organized crime figures of the era. The case was never reopened, and no one was ever charged in connection with her death, leaving her family and fans without any real closure. In the years since, true crime writers and historians have continued to revisit the case, pointing to her troubled relationship with a former husband and her business dealings with figures connected to organized crime as possible motives that were never seriously pursued by investigators at the time. The combination of her public success and the murky circumstances of her death has kept her story alive in Hollywood mystery circles for nearly a century. Thelma Todd was born on July 29, 1906, in Lawrence, Massachusetts. She died on December 16, 1935, at the age of 29. George Reeves. George Reeves became a household name playing Superman on television in the 1950s, a role that made him beloved by children across the country. Off-screen, friends described him as warm and easygoing, someone who seemed to genuinely enjoy the fame his career had brought him, even as the role limited other opportunities. In June 1959, Reeves was found dead in his home from a gunshot wound. The death was ruled a but the investigation that led to that conclusion left many questions unanswered. There were no fingerprints found on the gun. Witnesses in the home that night gave conflicting accounts of what they heard and saw, and some changed their stories in later years. Friends and colleagues who knew him well said they never believed he would take his own life. Some pointed to tension in his personal relationships at the time, suggesting the official story may have been used to close the case quickly rather than investigate it fully or thoroughly. The ruling has never been changed, but the doubts around it have never gone away either, and his death remains one of the most discussed unresolved cases in Hollywood history. A film made decades later about his life presented several competing theories, including the possibility of an accidental discharge or even foul play connected to people in his social circle. Without settling on a single definitive answer, the mixture of his wholesome public image and the unresolved nature of his death has kept the case a frequent subject of documentaries and retrospectives. George Reeves was born on January 5, 1914 in Woolstock, Iowa. He died on June 16, 1959, at the age of 45. D7. Brad Davis. Brad Davis built a respected acting career through the 1970s and 1980s, earning recognition for his intense performance in the film Midnight Express. He was known in the industry as a serious, dedicated actor who took his craft seriously, even when roles were difficult to find. In 1985, Davis was diagnosed with HIV. At the time, the entertainment industry was deeply unforgiving toward anyone connected to the disease, and Davis made the decision to keep his diagnosis hidden from almost everyone around him, including many people he worked with on a daily basis. For nearly a decade, he continued acting while privately managing his illness, terrified that the truth would end his career if it became public. He died in September 1991, and even then, many people in the industry did not immediately understand the full reason why his health had declined so quickly. It was only after his death that his wife, Susan Bluestein Davis, spoke publicly about his diagnosis, revealing how much he had hidden and how afraid he had been of what honesty might cost him professionally and personally. His story became one of the clearest examples of how much fear and secrecy shaped the entertainment industry during that period of widespread stigma. Friends who later spoke about his final years said he continued to audition and accept roles even as his health quietly declined, determined not to let his diagnosis define how the industry saw him. His openness after death, delivered through his wife rather than himself, helped shift how later generations of actors approached talking about their own health. Brad Davis was born on November 6, 1949, in Tallahassee, Florida. He died on September 8, 1991, at the age of 41. Bob Crane. Bob Crane became widely known for starring in the television series Hogan's Heroes, playing a clever prisoner of war who always managed to outsmart his captors. Off-screen, friends described him as friendly and easy to be around, someone who genuinely enjoyed connecting with fans wherever he went. In June 1978, Crane was found dead in an apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona. He had been struck multiple times in the head. There was no sign of forced entry, and investigators struggled for years to identify a suspect with enough evidence to bring charges. The 1990s, a man connected to Crane was finally charged in connection with the killing, but the case ended in an acquittal after a lengthy trial. To this day, no one has ever been convicted, and the question of who killed Bob Crane remains officially unanswered by any court. Crane's reputation off-screen, including details about his personal life that emerged after his death, only added more questions that were never fully resolved, fueling decades of speculation about possible motives. Investigators at the time considered several people close to Crane as possible suspects, including a friend who had reportedly traveled with him frequently, but prosecutors were never able to build a case strong enough to secure a conviction, even decades later. The unresolved nature of the murder has made it one of the most frequently revisited, unsolved Hollywood cases in true crime media. Bob Crane was born on July 13, 1928, in Waterbury, Connecticut. He died on June 29, 1978, at the age of 49. David Carradine. David Carradine spent decades building a respected acting career, best known for the television series Kung Fu, and later for his role in the Kill Bill films. He was widely regarded as a hard-working, dedicated performer well into his 60s, still taking on physically demanding roles. In June 2009, Carradine was found dead in a hotel room in Bangkok, Thailand, while filming a movie Thai officials initially suggested his death may have been the result of a personal act gone wrong. His family disputed this immediately and brought in an independent medical examiner from the United States to review the case. That examiner ruled out suicide, but the full circumstances were never fully agreed upon. Some believe his death was an accident. Others, including members of his own family, have publicly stated they believe he was murdered, pointing to inconsistencies in the initial investigation. No official investigation has ever changed the case into a homicide, but the doubts surrounding his death have never been resolved, and his family has continued to push for further review. His fourth wife publicly stated in interviews after his death that she did not believe the official conclusion, saying the details of the scene did not match what she knew about him. The case remains a frequent topic of discussion among fans who point to the unusual setting and the conflicting international investigations as reasons the full truth may never be confirmed. David Carradine was born on December 8, 1936 in Hollywood, California. He died on June 3, 2009 at the age of 72. 10. Lance Reddick. Lance Reddick built one of the most respected careers in modern television and film, known for his role as Cedric Daniels in The Wire and as Karen in the John Wick films. Colleagues often described him as one of the most disciplined and physically fit people they knew, with a daily routine built around health and training. In March 2023, Reddick collapsed suddenly at his home and died. Officials listed his cause of death as heart disease, but his family immediately disputed that explanation. Their attorney stated that no autopsy had actually been performed, and that the listed cause did not match Reddick's lifestyle, fitness, or any known medical history. The family's statement made clear they did not believe the official explanation told the full story, but no further investigation followed, and the case was never reopened by authorities. Lance Reddick was cremated. No grave was created, and there is no public resting place for fans to visit, leaving his story without the kind of physical marker most people associate with closure after a public figure passes away. Fans and colleagues across the industry expressed shock at how sudden his death was, given how often he had spoken publicly about his commitment to fitness and wellness throughout his career. The absence of an autopsy, combined with his family's public disagreement with the official cause, has left many people unconvinced that the full story has ever been told. Lance Reddick was born on June 7, 1962, in Baltimore, Maryland. He died on March 17, 2023 at the age of 60.